Hey friends, Rolf here. Welcome back to Louisville ProActivist Report. Got a great episode for you today. I'm here with my friend Hart Hagan, and we're going to discuss all kinds of things. So we're just going to sit back, have a conversation here, grab something to eat, grab something to drink, hang out with us. We're going to get from everything nationally, internationally, locally. So honestly, we'll see where this goes and what all we come up with as we're doing it. So welcome to the show, Hart. Thanks for joining me here today.
Thanks for being here, Rolf. Thanks for having me.
Yes, absolutely. And you all may recognize him. He was on the show a couple weeks ago, had a segment talking about the war in Iran. So welcome back. Let's start with the big story, what everybody's talking about. That, of course, is the Iowa caucus. Major happenings there this week. So many things, I don't even know where to start with that. I know you had some thoughts on it. So what were you thinking as you were watching this go down the other night?
Okay, so I got some observations written down here. Start with the facts. Bernie Sanders won the popular vote in Iowa. That's one thing.
First round and second round.
Yeah, another thing that struck me was the lack of transparency. It's like, is this the kind of thing that instills confidence in our democratic processes? I mean, is the Democratic National Committee to be trusted when it comes to conducting a democratic primary process, including counting the votes, et cetera? So what do you think?
I don't trust them. To be honest, I didn't trust them going into this. With the caucus, as messy as they are, though, I thought they're generally not riggable. With all the other faults of them, they're generally not riggable. But then you put an app into it, and it becomes riggable.
Right.
And there's just so many red flags here, to where if there's been some really good pundits make a point. There's been a lot of mistakes when it comes to the primaries. Going against Bernie Sanders back in 2016, we see Iowa here, what's going on, and they keep calling these mistakes, but the mistakes always seem to favor one side or the other. It's not just random, sometimes this person, sometimes somebody else. It's always favoring the same side. That tells me these aren't mistakes. You can't just mistake your way into helping one side over and over and over again. So that's really disturbing to see. Bernie Sanders, according to all the journalists on the ground, all the photographs I've seen from the various caucus sites, he definitely won this. We know he won round one. He won round two by popular vote. But then they bring in these SDEs, and nobody can seem to explain these SDEs. And somehow Buttigieg has more of these than Bernie Sanders does, despite not having the popular support. There's people on the ground in Iowa that can't even explain what these SDEs are exactly.
Let me play devil's advocate here, big picture. I mean,
okay.
Iowa is not a big state. There are not a whole lot of people. I mean, in the age of computer technology, it's ironic that if we want above-board elections, we need to get back to paper ballots because it's harder to rig. If you have, a bunch of data floating around in an app, a bunch of data running across the airwaves and the lines of the internet, then it's easy to hide corruption. So we need paper ballots. If you use computers, fine, it's okay to use computers, but you need paper ballots. Count, okay, here's the votes. 1, 2, 3. It wouldn't take that long to count a few thousand ballots.
Right, and they have to do this in public. This has to be transparent. Paper ballots on their own, part of the solution, but we need to have them transparently counted in public.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Together,
there needs to be a video of the count.
Absolutely.
So another observation is Pete Buttigieg, his campaign gave $42,000 to Shadow Inc.
Yes.
What is Pete Buttigieg as a participant in this election? What is his campaign doing giving money to the people that are counting the votes?
And it just doesn't end there with Buttigieg. He used Shadow Inc. previously in 2019. He has ties to them. One of his highest advisors in his campaign is married to a person in Shadow Inc. or acronym, I can't remember,
right.
But acronym owns Shadow Inc. Either way, one of his top advisors is married to one of the people running this. Shadow Inc. comes from two former Clinton people. David Plouffe is involved in Acronym. He's a former Obama guy.
So Shadow Inc. is this company that developed the software. Acronym is a company that owns Shadow Inc. And they've got all these connections to the Hillary Clinton campaign, to the Pete Buttigieg campaign, and they're in charge of counting the votes.
And money was exchanged as well. So, and just as a side note, Shadow Inc., Acronym, it feels like we're watching a James Bond movie.
Exactly. Could they have come up with a better name? Shadow.
I mean, what is it? Reagan Election Incorporated was taken. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what was left, but it just, if you're calling yourself Shadow Inc., I'm immediately going to assume there's something not on board with what you're doing.
Yeah, Acronym sounds like Big Brother or something,
right?
You know?
Right, and then they have Pacronym, which is their super PAC.
Oh yeah, the super PAC.
So let's not forget that.
Yeah, we need to mix
more
some
money,
PAC money into
more money
it.
in the mix because we don't have enough of that in our political system.
Right.
You know, we got to infuse a little more.
Yeah. So one thing about Pete Buttigieg is he's taken all of his PAC money. No, Pete Buttigieg takes PAC money, right? Mm-hmm. And whereas Bernie Sanders doesn't take PAC money, I think Biden does take PAC money. Elizabeth Warren, not so much, except a lot of the money that she's using has been rolled over from her former senatorial campaign. Right. So really, Bernie Sanders is the only one that is taking money only from the people. And then you've got PAC money behind Buttigieg, PAC money behind Biden. So why is that a problem? Why is PAC money a problem? What is a PAC? A political action committee that is a corporation that consolidates money from other corporations and from wealthy donors. So what could go wrong? What's the problem with that?
Hey, money talks. You know, there's no problem with that if you're the one with the money, you know, because you're going to get what you need. There's been studies done. I've seen this on represent.us where we as voters, meaning the ones who aren't donating the big money, we're not getting any bills passed on our behalf. I think it's 4% of what we want is turning into law.
Yeah.
Whereas big money donors are getting 97% on the other hand. And again, this is according to represent.us. And that's just scary. That's not democracy.
So right, exactly. I was going to say that. So, you know, do we have a democracy or a plutocracy? A democracy is one person, one vote. Plutocracy is rule of the rich. So you have money from rich people, money from corporations. You know, one of the best investments a corporate CEO can make is buying the legislators that end up passing the legislation that's favorable to their company. For instance, if you're in the military-industrial complex, you're with Boeing, you're with General Dynamics, Halliburton, Bechtel. All these are companies that make weapons. So if you want to, one of the best investments you can make is to buy a congressman who then votes for all this defense spending. Yes. So that's how we have that's how we have plutocracy. One, you know, the money is in the driver's seat.
Right, and what you see is it goes to both parties. You know, these donors are donating to Republicans, they're donating to Democrats. They really don't care. You know, Trump, before he was president, donated to both parties. You know, we see Bloomberg here, used to be a Republican, now he's a Democrat. Who knows what it'll be in a couple years? We don't know. Honestly, I don't care. Either way, he's the same guy. I'm not with him. But we're seeing this stuff repeatedly, and it gets to the point, you know, it's so blatant. You know, what are we? When do we stand up as a group and say enough is enough? We're not going to tolerate this anymore. We want fair elections. And is this election going to do it?
How do we change that?
That's the question I've been asking myself for a long time. I thought it should have happened after 2016. The primary rigging was very blatant.
So how was that primary rigged? I've been wondering myself because I really wasn't politically active back then, and I don't remember. I never really studied. What did they do? Superdelegates, or how did they rig the primary, like to get Hillary elected?
Okay, so it wasn't just one thing. It was a long process, and it started. And it's been a while, so I may have to refresh my details. You know, if I make a mistake, correct me in the comments. But this was all planned beforehand. So I was going around telling people in 2014 that they were going to push Hillary through. I could just see it coming. Everything was there for her. She basically was running the party. She was put in
It was
charge.
her time. It was her turn.
Yes, it was her turn. She was put in charge of the party.
Plus, you've got the Clinton Foundation, always, behind the scenes. Bill Clinton has made like 140 million or something since being president. Hillary has made like 70 million. A lot of this money goes into the Clinton Foundation. If there's money in the Clinton Foundation, it's a nonprofit, it's a charity. But if you control that, it's your wealth, effectively.
Right, and we can just go to the people of Haiti about how good the Clinton Foundation is.
Oh my God. Don't get me started about Haiti. So how was the 2016 election rigged?
So she was basically in charge of the financials of the Democratic Party. So, we heard all this stuff about she's raising money for down ballot candidates and stuff, but yet it turned out to be the other way around. All this money was being funneled to her campaign. This is a lady who didn't really run on anything other than, I'm with her, I'm not Trump. She didn't really bring anything to the table, first woman president, which would be amazing, but we need policies to go with that. So this wasn't a vote changing type of thing. This was just an overall, I guess, electioneering, I guess would be the word, for the whole thing. They were working with the media. You had constant praise of Hillary in the media, nothing but smears against Bernie in the media when he was even talked about. We did have the Bernie blackout, which we know about, where they wouldn't even talk about him. People in the streets for this guy, media acting like he didn't exist. We had voter rolls being purged.
Hillary was in charge of the DNC money, right?
Yes, and all that money was going to her campaign.
Okay, voter rolls being purged. So even Bernie says that, it's Republicans that are purging the voter rolls. But so you're saying that the Democratic Party is purging voter rolls? They're Democrats.
Absolutely.
So what are you talking about, though?
I know what voter purge is. What their thoughts and explanation behind this, that's a little something else. Maybe they're trying to say these people hadn't voted recently, so they had to get rid of them, or maybe they're saying there's a change of address. I don't know the reasoning behind it, but I know that it happened in areas that were known to have Bernie support. So if you take a part of a state or a big city that's heavy on Bernie, and then you purge those rolls, all of a sudden a lot of Bernie voters can't vote on voting day, and they don't even know that they've been purged. They're showing up at the voting booth, and now they're finding out that they're going to have to leave because they can't vote.
So what about superdelegates? Going to the convention, so superdelegates, what's that about?
So basically, a superdelegate, I believe it was, I want to say it was Donna Brazile that said this, maybe Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Again, it's been a few years and not so fresh on this stuff. But one of them said, it's basically they don't want another McGovern. Meaning that, a populist candidate that can't win the general is basically what they're referring to when they say they don't want another McGovern. So what they say is Bernie can't win. He can't get the right. He can't get independence. We can't put him up there. We can't allow him to be the nominee or we're going to get Trump. Now, obviously, that's a bad call, as Bernie was not the nominee and we got Trump anyways. They totally missed that. But the superdelegates are used. So it's basically you go to the convention, these superdelegates, because apparently they're smarter voters than us. They know better than we do. So if we vote wrong, these kind, intelligent people are there to make sure that they correct our votes.
So you have 700 superdelegates, and you have approximately 4,000 regular delegates, and you have approximately 4,700 overall delegates. 700 of them, or approximately, what's that, about 20% or so. 15, 18% of the delegates are superdelegates. They're controlled by the party. They're completely independent of Democratic voters. So the 4,000, they basically vote the way the Democratic voters do, and the 700 vote the way they want to, so they can swing the election their way, and so that's not very democratic, is it?
Right. And so shout out to BC DeGraff, friend of mine. He did, a couple years back, did some real heavy research on this, and he looked into the superdelegates, basically showing that the superdelegates were worth about 10,000 votes apiece. So with the math that he showed at that time, and check it out, look up BC DeGraff, it might be under Brandon DeGraff, and go back and find his work. But with that, it showed without those superdelegates, Bernie would have won. And of course, this, factoring, how did the votes change due to the way the media was handling this?
So how often do you hear about this on MSNBC or CNN? I mean, you would think that if their coverage reflected what people are concerned about or should be concerned about, you would think that MSNBC and CNN would be screaming about these superdelegates and how undemocratic it is.
You would think so, being that is their job to do so. But now it's nowadays more about access.
By the way, am I interrupting you too much?
No.
Okay, all right.
No, anytime.
All right,
interrupt
all
me
right,
anytime.
all right.
It's unfiltered, unedited. That's how we roll. And say what you got to say.
A standard policy is to dominate every conversation. Try not to, though.
My standard policy is to get the information out either via me or my guests. So that's what's important.
Okay, so another thing. See, let's talk a little bit about Russiagate, because this is related.
Yeah.
It's related in that the Democratic Party wants to distract us, and I don't mean Democratic voters. Obviously, Bernie is running as a Democrat. There are good Democrats, but the Democratic Party bosses want us to think that the Russians interfered with the 2016 election, and that's why Hillary lost, because Trump colluded with the Russians to steal the election from Hillary. But so what's up with that?
Okay, I can definitely rant on this.
Yeah, please do. Please do.
Okay, so the Russiagate thing has been thoroughly debunked. But besides that, when we were watching in real time, as the election went down, as the primary went down, you could see shenanigans after shenanigans, state after state, culminating in the debacle in California, which was just a complete mess. And we're seeing all these things, all these troubles with our election system that we need to fix, all these troubles with our voting system that we need to fix. None of this stuff has anything to do with Russia. Nothing in that election had anything to do with Russia. Hillary did not campaign in the swing states that she needed to win. She lost those. Russia did not blockade those states. She could have went there.
Yeah, it's funny that the Russians knew that Hillary should go to Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, but she didn't.
Right. So maybe some of these Democratic strategists should be replaced with some of these Russian strategists. If they can be so successful from across the world.
Yeah.
And we have all these experts here that can't win an election for anything. I mean, under Obama, the Democrats lost over 1,000 seats nationally in Congress, gubernatorial seats, and so on. It's clear that this is not, the policies the Democrats have are not popular, and this is pushing people away from the Democrats. And this isn't just in America, this is all over the world. We're seeing 60-something straight weeks of yellow vest protests in France, where they're protesting neoliberalism, which is what Democrats push, is neoliberalism.
So let's name some of those policies that the Democratic Party is not, or that they're on the wrong side. You have the Democratic Party versus the people. I mean, NAFTA, for one thing.
Yes.
Are you going to vote for Hillary Clinton when Bill Clinton brought us NAFTA? NAFTA has been horrible for the working class, bad for economies, bad for local tax bases, because when these towns across the Midwest and all over, but when these towns become ghost towns because the factories have left and the jobs have left, then that hurts the tax base of a town. But NAFTA was terrible. You have welfare reform. You have the Democrats, Bill Clinton, kicking a bunch of people off the welfare rolls, and they're going against their own base. What else?
The Telecommunications Act in 1996 that took us from over 50 different major owners of media down to a handful, and I believe 6 entities hold 93% of our media now. This was a Democratic policy. So that's just more homogenization of the media. That's why we're only allowed to talk about certain things. You only hear about certain things. You don't hear about a whole lot of other things. Is because all the media is owned by the same people, and they're dictating what we know about and what we don't know about.
Yeah, so the media is owned, they're owned by a lot of the same people. Just as important as that, they're sponsored. The media is sponsored by the military-industrial complex. The media is sponsored by Monsanto. They're sponsored by General Motors. Mm-hmm. You could go on and on. Yeah. Wall Street. the banks, how many, so look at all the
JP
credit
Morgan,
card commercials, look at all the car commercials, the media is sponsored, so you're not going to bite the hand that feeds you.
Right.
And so that was just, it was bad before, even before the Telecommunications Act of 1996. You still have, the media is owned by whoever sponsors it, but it's even worse. It's like a half dozen companies that own all the media, and they tend to be sponsored by Fortune 500 companies. So Fortune 500 companies get their way versus small business, versus the consumer, versus the population.
Absolutely. And that's not all, as far as Democrats versus the people. Under Obama, he took us from 2 wars when he entered into at least 7.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not ending anytime soon. It's we've been at war for but I believe 13 years as a nation. And that's under Democrats, that's under Republicans. They just work hand in hand on that. We have these Democrats not only improving Trump's military budgets, but adding an extra 70 million on. How are we going to pay for that? You always want to know how we're going to pay for things for the people. How are we paying for that? Where's that extra money coming from? Where every year the military budget goes up and it's bipartisan. There's never any bipartisan work though for the people, for health care, for infrastructure, for wages, jobs, on and on and on. There's never anything bipartisan. But yet, we don't stop with the wars. We don't stop with the military spending. We don't stop with the tax cuts for the rich. We don't stop with helping Wall Street and the bailouts. It's always bipartisan that we get from these.
So I was trying to look up a meme I got, but this is different. There's no difference between Democratic and Republican administrations. Both of them are bought by the military-industrial complex. Both of them are bought by fossil fuel companies. You could go on down the list. Both of them are bought by Coke and Pepsi. Both of them are bought by Disney and Viacom, and this doesn't change from one administration to the next.
Right.
So if you're a Democrat, if you're a Hillary Clinton, you have to try to distinguish yourself from the Republicans, and that's hard to do. If you're Nancy Pelosi, you have to distinguish yourself from Republicans, and that's hard to do. If you're Joe Biden, you have to distinguish yourself from Republicans. Hillary Clinton is a Republican with a D in front of her name. Obama was a Republican with a D in front of his name. In fact, he said that. You ever seen that video?
He's a Reagan Republican.
Yeah. If you go back to, he said of himself on video that if you go back to the 80s, my policies would be moderate Republican. Okay, so with Democrats like you, Barack Obama, who needs Republicans?
Let me ask you, if he's saying that about himself and he thinks that about himself, then when he ran in 2008 as a progressive, what exactly does that make him?
A hypocrite?
Yes.
Yeah. So he and Bill Clinton both they ran as progressives. He had he talked the talk, but he didn't follow through with any of that. I mean, if you're Barack Obama in 2008, how do you handle the bank crisis?
How would I handle it?
How would you handle it?
Me personally?
Yeah.
I'd go the Iceland model. I'd lock up bankers.
Yeah.
I wouldn't bail them out.
Right.
And break them up. So I don't have any love for what they're doing, and they're not benefiting the country. So.
Right. So Barack Obama, 2008, well, he became president in 2009. Okay, here's your chance. What are you going to do when you have the banks going bankrupt and then wanting a bailout? Well, if you're Barack Obama, you bail out the banks. You don't bail out people who might lose their homes. You don't bail out people who might lose their jobs. You don't bail out people who have lost their pensions. You bail out the banks that have caused this crisis to begin with, and then not too long after that, they're paying themselves these multi-million-dollar bonuses.
That was really infuriating too. They get these massive bonuses for what? I mean, why do you get a bonus for failure?
Yeah.
If I fail at work, I certainly don't get a bonus. Lucky to still be employed the next day. So the last thing they're going to do is, let me go home and make a bunch of extra money. So,
well, let's talk about what he could have done. Here's that. Let me see. I'll talk about that in a minute. But here's what Barack Obama could have done with General Motors. Okay, so General Motors goes bankrupt. Now, and General Motors is a company that gets massive contracts from the federal government. Yeah, I don't know the details, but you know they're doing things like building tanks and building, just lots of trucks and stuff for the military.
Right.
So General Motors goes bankrupt. What do you do? But you give them loans and say, be on your way, have a nice day. And so they're not owned by the very same people that drove them into bankruptcy, but they're owned by the same class of people. Whereas what you could have done with General Motors, for one thing, you could say, okay, we've got enough cars. We're going to build solar panels and windmills, and we're going to build train cars, and we're going to build what you need to build for the new economy. And for another thing, we're going to consider the mere possibility we might be worker owned. We might let General Motors be owned by the workers. Or we might say, okay, General Motors, henceforth, half of your directors are elected by the workers. Could have done any of that. But Barack Obama just bails their sorry asses out and be on your way.
Right. It's not what people voted for. Yeah, this is not what people voted for.
This is a Democrat.
And I know I was, a lot younger, and I was a little excited about Obama in 2008, and retroactively, that's pretty naive. Knowing what I know now, but at the time, I really thought he was going to be a progressive.
Yeah, he fooled you. Like you say, he ran as a progressive. So it's not your fault. He fooled you.
So before we get too far away from it, let's get back into Russiagate again, because I wanted to make a point on that, and as compared to Iowa and what's going on now, is, they say that Russia undermined the election. We have Trump because of Russia, all this stuff, right? We know that now is not true. It's been thoroughly debunked. I know some people haven't seen that yet, apparently, but yes, it's been thoroughly debunked. Mm-hmm. But we look at what happened. We had the Internet Research Agency, a Russian troll farm, post some memes and some ads. This was about $100,000 on Google, and I think $4,500 on Facebook. Most of these ads and memes did not air until after the election. The ones that aired before were hardly seen by anybody, literally single digits. There were ones promoting Bernie, ones promoting Trump, ones promoting Hillary, ones that had nothing to do with politics.
And they were doing this just to get followers for commercial purposes, right? That's what I heard.
Basically clickbait.
Yeah.
They're just throwing darts everywhere, trying to see what would stick, trying to get people to them, but they weren't affiliated with the Russian government. That is what they told us was Russia interfering in our election. We just had a caucus where they put an app in there that completely botched the entire caucus results. And we have the 9th richest man in the world just spent $350,000 to get on the debate stage last night.
Bloomberg?
Yes. He has no grassroots support. He didn't bother to campaign. He just bought his way in.
And they changed the rules for Bloomberg. So Tulsi doesn't get on the debate stage, but Bloomberg does. Tulsi has a hell of a lot more popular support, but she doesn't get on the debate stage.
Booker, all these people. Not that I'm a fan of Booker, but I am a fan of democracy.
Yeah.
And I don't like rules for one person and not for another. That's just not how it works. We're trying to be educated on these candidates so we can make the best decision, make the best vote, right? So we need to hear from them. Some of them are terrible, and we need to hear that so that we don't consider these people. So we talk about these Russian oligarchs. They don't have elections in Russia. Putin's just, he's a puppet to the oligarchs there. And we have Bloomberg, 9th richest man in America, far more rich than any Russian oligarchs, probably richer than multiple Russian oligarchs put together, buying his way into an election. Bloomberg, this Iowa caucus, this stuff has done more damage to our democracy than Russia ever could and ever has.
Or it just reveals how rotten our democracy, how not a democracy it is.
Right. So if you're one of these people out here that's still pushing Russiagate, please take a look around you. Don't throw stones in a glass house. Look at our election system. Look at what's going on. Look at the money. Look what's happening. Do the research. And please stop with the Russiagate. Don't come at me with the Russiagate stuff. I'm not hearing that anymore. We know better. It's been too many years. I'm not hearing you. Look around. So that's what I have to say about that.
Sure. Let me make another observation about Russiagate. Even like you just hear Russiagate, Russiagate, Russiagate. I'm going to put this on silent. Sorry. And it's like compared to what? Even if Vladimir Putin had conspired to influence our elections, how much influence does he had compared to Israel?
None.
How much influence does he have compared to Saudi Arabia? Saudi Arabia and Israel, I can't even think of another, besides those two countries, I can't think of another country that has such influence over our political process. Now, so those are countries. Let's talk about companies. The Fortune 500, these are companies and wealthy people that can just buy our politicians and get the legislation that they want. We know scientifically, we don't live in a democracy, in that public policy does not reflect public opinion. The laws that Congress passes do not reflect the desires of the American people. So if we want to critique if we want to look at who is influencing our democracy, Russia is like way the hell down there on the list. You can name 500 or 1,000 companies and hundreds of rich people that have way more influence over our political processes than Russia. So why do we talk about Russia?
All right, so let's break down some of that Russian influence since Trump's been elected, because that kills me too. They keep saying that Trump is Putin's puppet, but let's look at his actions, okay?
Yeah.
So let's look at Venezuela. We pulled a coup there. We were attempting to pull a coup for a while. We pulled a coup, somewhat successful, I guess, with Juan Guaido. Russia doesn't want that to happen. You know, that's an ally of Russia. So how is Trump a Putin puppet there?
Yeah. Right.
Let's look at the escalation in Eastern Europe, in the Black Sea.
Oh.
You know. So we're putting more troops, more of everything there in the Black Sea, all around Ukraine, everything. Does Putin want that? Does Putin want more troops around us? No? No? Surely he does. Okay, so he doesn't like, okay. Well, Trump's definitely Putin's puppet because, we went after Assad in Syria.
Yeah, right.
So you were trying to put a pipeline there. We want that pipeline built through. Putin wants the opposite. So how is Trump's Putin puppet or maybe it's Iran, are escalating with Iran. Aren't they friends with Russia a little bit? So Putin would have Trump escalate with his friend Iran.
And you obviously have all these countries to the north of Iran. You have Afghanistan, Kyrgyzstan, several countries. You know, that we're just on the doorstep of all of Russia and China. Anyway, but you were talking about whether Trump is going the way of Putin, doing what Putin would want to do.
So if he's a puppet of Putin, Putin did not get his money's worth.
Right.
Because everything is going against what he wants. Now, this is not a defense of Putin.
Right.
I'm not a Putin cheerleader, but I look at the facts objectively. Trump's actions do not match that of somebody working for Putin. It just doesn't add up. So if he really was, he'd be siding with Assad. He'd be siding with Iran. He would not pull a coup in Venezuela. The Black Sea stuff would definitely not be happening. We're even trying to stop that. Germany's trying to get that pipeline with Russia. We tried to stop that. Does Putin want us to stop their pipeline with Germany? Not that I support a pipeline with Germany, but nevertheless, Merkel and Putin have an agreement to do a pipeline. Trump tried to interfere with that. So that's definitely not what a puppet would do. Now, on the other hand, you have Saudi Arabia, you have Israel. We're doing this huge weapons deal with Saudi Arabia. They behead people in the streets, literally.
Oh, yeah.
No women's rights.
Yeah.
They just chopped up Khashoggi here last year, and we're still selling weapons to these people. We're still proxies with this Yemen genocide. And why are we doing this? This is a terrible government in Saudi Arabia. You have Israel. We have AIPAC. Heavily involved in our elections, and now they're trying to say what we can and can't talk about with BDS, boycott, divest, and sanction. We have these BDS laws popping up all over the country. That's anti-free speech. It's anti the Constitution. And why do we have to pledge any kind of loyalty or be quiet about a country that we don't reside in? This isn't Israel. I love the Israeli people. Israel's a beautiful country, but as far as their government goes, I don't owe them any allegiance. I don't have to back their foreign policy. It doesn't speak to what I want, but they're controlling that, and they're telling me, you know, that I can't talk about it. And if they get these laws through nationwide, they could eventually imprison somebody like me that talks about it, because I do talk about BDS, and I've been a BDS guy. You know, I might get shit from that just from saying that in this video. Who knows? But, you know, I'll continue to be BDS as long as I feel it's the right thing to do. And, you know, I feel like the First Amendment guarantees me that right. But we see Israel doing this, we see Saudi Arabia doing this, and yet we're talking about Russia.
Yeah. So one thing that I see here is that there are about 7 to 9 countries that are not bowing the knee to U.S. empire. So why is Iran a bad guy and Saudi Arabia is a good guy in our media? But it has nothing to do with their human rights record. It has nothing to do with their form of government. It has everything to do with the American empire. So the U.S. is an empire. Yes. If the U.S. is not an empire, there's never been an empire. And the bad guys in the media dialogue and the bad guys in the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, the bad guys are the Russians and the Chinese, the Iran. In this hemisphere, you have Nicaragua, Venezuela, and Cuba. Those are the bad guys. That's the troika of tyranny. There's one I left out. Is North Korea is a bad. Of course, North Korea is a terrible regime, but there are terrible regimes that are U.S. allies, and you never hear about them talked about as the bad guys. So Iran is painted as a bad guy because they're not bowing the knee to U.S. empire. The Russians and the Chinese are always vilified because they're not bowing the knee to the U.S. empire. And Michael Parenti said the Republic pays for the empire. So we're the Republic. We're supposed to be the demos, the people. We're paying for this empire. We're paying for the military-industrial complex that goes all over the world and does bad things to support the profitability of U.S. corporations. And that's why Iran is thought to be bad. That's why Assad in Syria is thought to be bad. That's why the Russians and the Chinese, there are about 9 countries altogether. And then, Libya was destroyed because they wanted to be a little bit independent.
And they have open-air slave markets now.
Yeah.
But we don't want to go over there now,
Yeah.
We're not worried about that cruelty or anything like that. We're not trying to spread democracy over there or anything. We already got what we wanted, and oh well, I guess the open-air slave market comes with that, right?
So we started down this path because we were talking about Russiagate. And so Russiagate is this big thing. Some media outlets, like people like Rachel Maddow, it's all they've talked about for 3 years. And Russiagate, the Russians are doing this, and the Russians are doing that, and the Russians are interfering with our elections, and the Russians are conspiring with Trump, and Trump is conspiring with the Russians. But why is that? And it's not because the Russians are actually doing bad things to our democracy. It's about these Democratic Party and the Republican Party are always jockeying for power within our system, and they have to manufacture consent. They have to get us to believe that somebody else is the bad guy.
That's it. That's why whenever they want to topple a country, that country never has a government. They have a regime. Iran doesn't have a government. They have a regime.
Right.
Venezuela has a regime. North Korea has a regime. Syria has a regime. Libya had a regime. And whoever fill in the blank next country we're going to go to, they have a regime. If they don't have one today, they will by then. Yeah. Trust me, they will. They will not have a government. They will have a regime.
It's like Jimmy Dore said, when I found out Venezuela had all that oil, I knew we needed to bring them democracy.
Right. Yeah. Right. So, that's one of the things they do is, the terminology, the framing of things to kind of manufacture support, and they call them a regime.
So let's talk a little bit about Venezuela. So this week we had the State of the Union address, and Nancy Pelosi was behind Trump doing all this drama and posturing. At the end of the speech, she tore up State of the Union address. And okay, so that's one powerful group jockeying for power with another powerful group at our expense. But the one thing that these two groups agreed on is two standing ovations for Juan Guaido, who is the fake president of Venezuela. Nicolas Maduro is the real president of Venezuela. They have better elections than we have. We don't need to bring them democracy. We need to leave them the hell alone. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the Carter Foundation, the Jimmy Carter Foundation was there and verified the elections. The United Nations did as well. I know some people don't trust them, but trust the Jimmy Carter Foundation. You get them both together, and pretty sure they have decent elections. Since all this, Maduro has even offered to have another election, but we're not having it because we're just going to put Guaido there. We don't want an election. The Venezuela situation, it's a mess. There's basically four factors that go into that. Of course, you tackled the main one. That's the oil. They hold the largest oil reserves.
Four factors. I thought there was two. You're going to have to tell me a couple more.
Okay, so yeah, that's the main one.
Okay.
That's enough. That's enough for us to, call him a regime and bring this guy Guaido from George Washington University, educated down there, never been in an election, never received a vote for president. Just removed from their national parliament, by the way, and then he pulled that stunt. Did you see that, where he tried to climb a wall in front of the cameras or whatever? Anyways, I was embarrassed for him. I don't like the guy at all, but I was embarrassed. Right. That was bad, Guaido. But he does, the other things that we're talking about there, they do have some rare earth minerals there as well.
Yeah.
But that's not it. Venezuela is one of the few countries that Monsanto, now Bayer Santo, whatever you want to call it, are not allowed there. They want to get in there. Guaido is going to let them in there if he gets the chance. They want that market, so that's a big deal there. That is a heavy push. But there's a fourth one. And of course, race has to rear its ugly head here. So for anybody who doesn't know much about the Venezuela political situation and as how race plays into it, it's like this. Most of that country is indigenous. A lot of what are minorities here. There is a light-skinned/white population there. They are the upper class, but they're, 10 to 20% of the population at most. But they are light-skinned, all of them. They very much do not like Maduro. Maduro was a bus driver? Beforehand, I believe he was a bus driver, just a man of the people. So they don't want this man of the people.
And also Chavez, in Spanish, he referred to himself as negro y indio, black and Indian.
Right.
And if you look at him, you can see the physical features of that. But Chavez and Maduro, both part of the people of color that has not traditionally been part of the ruling class in Latin America.
Right.
Latin America is stratified. Latin America has been ruled by white Europeans for 500 years.
Right, and they want that
they
back.
don't want to give that up.
Right. So that is a major thing there, and last but not least, I guess this is a fifth thing. But here in the Americas, we can't allow, a leftist government to just coexist on our hemisphere.
It's a threat of a bad example.
Right.
And that's why, that's why Nicaragua, Cuba, and Venezuela are the three bad guys, the troika of tyranny, John Bolton's famous troika of tyranny speech, as if somehow the government of Nicaragua is more tyrannical than their neighbor of Guatemala or El Salvador or Honduras. If you want to see tyranny, look in these countries near Nicaragua that are controlled by the U.S.
Right. Right, and let me just point out too, with Guaido, he's a pretty light-skinned guy, last I checked. So yeah, when it comes to Venezuela, we're talking oil, to a lesser extent, rare earth minerals, we're talking race, we're talking Monsanto. So that's what we're dealing with, and the leftist government, of course. So really 5 things. So, but yeah, any one of those 5 on its own, it's enough for us to go make a move. I mean, we did in Bolivia as well, a little bit more succsually than.
Oh yeah, Bolivia.
Unfortunately,
Bolivia. Who? MSNBC, CNN, New York Times. Who among them is crying about the? Let's talk about Bolivia for just a minute. I mean, it was a democracy, but then they lost their democracy a few months ago.
And we're at fault for that.
Yeah. So I have a friend, Steve Bartlett, who's spent a lot of time in Latin America, and he's recently been to Venezuela. He knows a lot about agriculture, and he works with the farm workers union. And he says that in Venezuela, they're doing a good job with local agriculture there. So if they can do a better job just growing food to feed their own people, then they won't need these multinational corporations to come in and sell them something. Because for time immemorial, what's been happening is that the U.S. wants to control the government of a country so that to open their markets, so that our corporations can sell them cigarettes and stuff, and all of our consumer goods. We want to sell, and we want to go in there and we want to have cheap labor. If you want cheap labor, the thing you do is, for one thing, you keep people poor and destitute. For another thing, you have fascist governments that don't allow unions. They assassinate union leaders. And don't allow any organizing, don't allow any populist organizing. And that's what the U.S. does to countries all over the world.
That's absolutely it. It's the empire. And there's no end in sight unless, we get these people out of power.
Right. I was the biggest patriot up until about a couple of years ago, when I actually started learning about what really goes on in the world. And, to me, the U.S. resembles nothing more than the Death Star on Star Wars.
Or ancient Rome, too.
Yeah.
I like to equate it back to that, especially the fall of Rome and what we're seeing right now. So. Yeah, but go ahead. Sorry, didn't mean
No, not at all. I mean, that's the U.S. just rules the whole world, lords it over the whole world. The world domination is the goal, and when countries like Russia and China stand in the way of our world domination, the people with all the money behind the scenes get pissed off, and they have the media goes into overdrive. And it's not a big conspiracy, but it's like the media has this hard filter on it that says, we're not going to run stories that make our sponsors look bad. So it's really powerful.
Access. Yeah, access is a powerful tool against our media, kind of, too, because they want access to the people in charge, and they're not going to get it if they give the truth.
So access to people like in the CIA and in the Pentagon. The Pentagon spends our tax dollars to have all this media relations stuff. Basically, we're paying them so that they can propagandize us.
Exactly.
The Pentagon, the CIA.
Does that feel like money well spent to you?
No. Let me read this thing. There's this meme I found. I posted it. Things we can't afford. We can't afford health care, infrastructure, public transport, education, renewable energy, clean environment, feeding the poor, or public elections. We can't afford, how are we going to pay for that? Can't afford any of that.
Well, those things are just luxuries.
Oh, those are just luxuries, yeah. But and it's always, somebody like Bernie Sanders or AOC, how are you going to pay for that? You're going to give away free stuff to people. You just want people to have free stuff, as if the military-industrial complex doesn't get free stuff, as if Wall Street doesn't get free stuff. Anyway, here's the things we can afford. We can afford the Iraq and Afghan wars, $4 to $6 trillion total between the two wars. More than that, if you count everything, like the interest on the debt. We can't afford Wall Street bailouts, $12.8 trillion. We're giving money to these big banks. Every day, all the time, we're giving tons of money to these big banks. We can afford big oil subsidies, $37.5 billion per year.
Well, they need that money.
I know.
They're struggling.
They're struggling. They need our help. Here's one of my favorites, F-35 fighter jet program, $1.5 trillion. So the F-22 fighter jet is not enough. The F-16 fighter jet is not enough. We have to have what are we up to? 35. We have to have F-35 fighter jets, because we've been selling F-16s and F-22s to these other countries, so we need a better weapon to go, and the F-35 doesn't even work that well.
They've been building it since, 2001? 2003?
Right.
And it still doesn't work, but it has $600,000 helmets to come with it.
But the people that make those jets, they need jobs.
Oh, yeah. It's we do have that military economy, the war economy. And if that's what you need to make an economy, then we need to scrap the economy and start over, because that's not it. Killing people for profit isn't, it's not worth jobs. We need better jobs, jobs that mean something.
Well, we could have, here's some jobs, like I have about 11 different things, I think, but 5 of them. Start off with, we need engineers and technicians in the area of solar power. We need engineers, technicians, and planners in the area of wind power. We need engineers and technicians and planners in the area of building a state-of-the-art energy grid, an energy grid of the future instead of an energy grid of the past. We need engineers, technicians, and planners in the area of mass transit. And we also need to plant a lot of trees. We need to plant a lot of native trees. So we need we need to train people in ecological forestry, in my opinion.
Not just trees, but we need plants for pollinators as well. Right. It has to go hand in hand.
Yeah. Right, exactly. We need, which goes hand in hand with ecological landscaping. The landscaping that we knew needs to be more ecological. We need to have native plants, we need native trees, we need less lawn, we need less chemicals. And we also need ecological farming, organic, small, local, organic farms.
Yes.
So all these things, we need, plus we could employ people in healthcare, education, and the arts. These are low carbon things. Arts, that seems like a luxury, but if you have community theater, then you need less Disney and crap like that just wants to go all over the world, dominate the entire world, pay slave labor for their merchandising. So there's lots of ways that we could employ people in good, low-carbon jobs instead of spending $1.5 trillion on a fighter jet that doesn't work.
Right. Absolutely. So that's a perfect transition. 52 minutes in, we probably get one more good topic in. So
Okay.
With that transition, let's talk about Green New Deal for Louisville.
Okay.
And I know that's important to you, so I'll let you get started with that.
Okay. Well, night before last was Thursday, February 6th, and honestly, to my surprise, I was delighted, but I was also extremely surprised that the Metro Council passed a renewable energy resolution, 100% clean and renewable energy resolution. Shout out to my friends in a group called 100% Real. And if I tried to name names, I would forget somebody. I'm going to forget somebody, I'm sorry, but Margaret Carrero, Drew Foley, Sam Avery, Wallace McMullen, George Perkins, and about 6 other people whose names I'm just forgetting right now. But the Metro Council passed a clean energy resolution, and it's basically says, let me get my notes here. By 2035, we will have 100% by 2030, we will have 100% clean and renewable electricity in metro government. So all the electricity used in metro government within 10 years is going to be clean and renewable electricity.
Real quick, I see Extinction Rebellion Louisville talking about this a lot too as well, right?
Yeah. Right.
Are you familiar with them? Do you know any of them?
Yeah, I'm kind of a part of that too.
Okay, yeah, because I've been seeing that through the emails and whatnot as well.
Jackie Green and maybe Alex Scholl.
Yeah.
Okay.
So shout out to Extinction Rebellion.
Shout out to Extinction Rebellion, and gosh, we need to have an episode just giving credit and thanks to the people that are involved with this, and we'll do that. But by 2035, 100% clean and renewable energy. So clean and renewable electricity means the electricity is generated from solar and wind, and possibly some hydroelectric. 100% clean and renewable energy in addition to the electricity means metro government will have eliminated natural gas as a source of energy between now and 2035. By 2040, the goal is to have an entire community that's run entirely by clean and renewable energy. So I'm really happy that in today's political environment, we at least got a resolution. I mean, this is just one tiny step in the right direction, but I was very encouraged that we had people the metro government, metro council make that tiny step in the right direction.
And if you are watching, reach out to your metro government representative, whoever that is, and let them know you support this Green New Deal for Louisville.
Right. Let me read the Metro Council members. Now, there's 28 Metro Council districts, and
a bunch of them are up for re-election this year.
Yeah,
by the way, too, people.
Yeah, the even-numbered districts, 2, 4, 6, 8, etc., are up for re-election this year. For example, I'm in District 8, and Brandon Cohn is not going to be running again, but if he were, there's going to be the election for District 8, 10, 12, etc.
And I'm going to try to get some of those candidates on for you. I have one scheduled right now for sure, and I have another one I'm in talks with. We're just figuring out a date. And I'm going to search around if there are any good candidates that are grassroots. Let me know in the comments, and I'll reach out to them if I'm not familiar with them. But I'll try to get as many of these people on as I can.
Right. I like Ryan Fenwick, and I think he's District 10, and also Robert Bell in District 4.
Yeah, I'm in conversation with him.
Yeah.
That's the one we're working on the time. So but we're going to make that happen for you all.
Great. So here's how people voted. There were 14 yes votes and 5 no votes. That only adds up to 19. So the other 9 people either didn't vote or
voted present. Looked like.
Yeah. So Jessica Green was NV, I think, is not voting for some reason. Maybe or I don't know. So Jessica Green not voting. Barbara Shanklin, District 2, not voting. Keisha Dorsey, yes vote. Barbara Sexton Smith, yes vote. Deonna Purvis, yes vote. David James abstained from the voting. Paula McCraney, yes vote. Brandon Cohn voted yes. Bill Hollander voted yes. Pat Mulvihill abstained. Kevin Kramer was a no vote. Rick Blackwell was a yes vote. Mark Fox was a yes vote. Cindy Fowler was a yes vote. Kevin Triplett voted yes. Scott Reed voted no. Marcus Winkler voted yes. Marilyn Parker voted no. Anthony Piagentini voted no. Stuart Benson was a non-voter. Nicole George voted yes. Robin Engel and James Peden both were a NV. I don't know what that means, if it's a no, not voting or something. Madonna Flood voted yes. David Yates voted yes. Brent Ackerson voted yes. So thank you to all the people. Ackerson's yours.
Good job, Brent.
Yeah, thank you for all the people that voted yes. I'm going to pick on the people that voted no. Kevin Kramer voted no. Why? Scott Reed voted no. Why? Marilyn Parker voted no. Why? Anthony Piagentini voted no. Why? So we need to really draw attention to the people that voted yes and the people that voted no. And maybe give a little bit of a hard time to the people that abstained. I mean, hell, you can't, like somebody like David James did not vote because his wife is some kind of contractor that might benefit. Hell, who's not going to benefit? Who's not going to be affected in some way by this whole thing? Right. Conflict of interest is bogus. Anyway, but we are taking a tiny step in that direction. I would like for all these numbers to be 2030. And I don't like it when 2040 is even in there. I don't like it when 2035 is even in there. When you have the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change with the United Nations saying we have 10 years to get our act together. And there's already a lot of damage that's already been done. Right. And there's going to be a lot. So even if we do this, there's still only like a 50-50 chance that we don't lose control of the climate. It's just insane that we're not dropping everything and dealing with this right now. But shout out to the Metro Council for doing the right thing, at least most of them.
Right. And for those of you who are still skeptical or outright don't believe in climate change, you're against the Green New Deal, look at it this way. Even if you don't believe in that stuff, it's going to bring jobs to everyone. These are well-paid jobs. They should be union jobs. They should come with benefits. You're going to get the training. So this is going to help communities. This is going to help businesses. This is going to be more sustainable. So even if by some small chance that we're wrong about this, which we're not. But
we're not.
But if by some small chance we are, it still helps clean up the community. It provides jobs, and it's going to take care of a lot of people. So So regardless, you should still be behind this, no matter what.
Here's another thing about doubters. There's no doubt that we're losing species at a rate of like 1,000 times the natural rate. There is a natural rate of extinction in Earth history. Take that natural rate and multiply it by 1,000. We have the species. Let me go this way. Species are plummeting, and we can't afford this. And it's all from the same causes. It's from an economic system that rewards money grabbing over everything else. A forest is worth nothing until you chew it up and turn it into lumber and farmland. So in other words, a forest actually is worth something, but it's not, in our economic system, it is not treated as if it is worth anything. Clean water has a value, but it's not treated as if it has value. Clean air has value, but it's not treated as if it has value. Topsoil has value, but it's not treated as if it has value in our economic system. We have this economic system that is dramatically impacting climate to where it's a serious question. Even if we stopped all carbon emission now, there would be a serious question as to whether we can survive. So the thing to do, all the more reason to double up and keep it. But even if climate is not, even if some people doubt climate, you can't doubt that we're going through a mass extinction. Nothing bigger than a squirrel survives a mass extinction.
I believe this is our 6th mass extinction in world history. So yeah, that's the time we're in right now. And, it's not going to stop itself. It's up to us to make that decision that we want to do it. So, yeah, it's up to the people to take control of these processes. It's time for the few to stop telling the many what to do. It's time for the many to tell the few what to do. That's it. So I think that's a good time to wrap it up. We're at 61 minutes, so we hit that hour mark. Appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, Rolf.
Hopefully we'll do this again.
Sounds good.
So let us know in the comments what you think about this. Give us your feedback on not just the topics, but the format. Also, in case you all didn't notice, this was the first show I did with the new microphones. So if you have any feedback on the sound, let me know what you think about that. I definitely want to hear what you all think about that. I have some more shows coming up next couple weeks. Some various topics, so I'm real excited about those. We'll keep lining them up for you all. And just remember, this is independent media. I do not make any money on this. I'm a one-man show. I get out in the community and do this guy as kind of a community service, so I need your help to help spread the message for the people that I have on. Like, share, subscribe, follow, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. Show the love. This is the only way that we can get the message out. I'm heavily censored on Facebook. They are really suppressing my posts there. It's really hard to grow, and I'm pretty new on YouTube, and so it's hard to grow there as well. We're in that time of censorship against independent media, and I'm trying to grow this from scratch during that time, so I need you all to back me up on this with your shares and your likes and your comments. Be a big deal, and it'll help grow my algorithms. So just stay tuned for the next shows coming up. Thank you all for watching. Share this out if you like it. Thanks again, Hart, for being on. And remember to always think critically.